Hello, everyone. This is Will.
This is Alex.
Welcome back to another episode of They Mostly Come Out at Night.
Mostly, baby.
We back. Sorry for the
Sorry for
impromptu
the brief
hiatus.
absence.
Yeah. Shit happens. Life happens. So
Life happens
we
to
had
all of
shit
us.
to take care of. Sorry.
Even to us.
Yeah.
Speaking of
You-
life and life things that you should do,
Yes.
please don't forget.
Go support us wherever you get your podcasts. We're everywhere.
Everywhere.
So-
Spotify, YouTube, please subscribe, like, whatever you gotta do. We appreciate it always. We love you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you to all this small but growing community.
Thank
We
you
really
all.
appreciate you. So, hopefully you've enjoyed listening to our previous episodes
We got another one.
while you wait. And we got another one now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a
And,
kind of a big one, actually, to be honest. I mean, if you're like
It
this is a very, well, the first one is extremely popular.
is extremely popular, and this is one of those movies that
I guess,
people don't talk about, but people who
no.
know, because I did recently see, fitting. I did very recently see, like within the past 2 months, that apparently Quentin Tarantino is a big fan of this movie. I know Red Letter Media talked about this movie, and they also love this sequel.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's hard to take, well, this will kind of give you, it's hard to take like such an iconic movie
That everyone knows.
that everyone
Even
knows.
people who haven't seen it.
Yeah.
know.
Well, and like there's like iconic scenes, there's like stuff that happens
There's
that
so
everyone
many
knows about.
parodies and yeah.
So taking that iconic name and that you probably know what we're alluding to, but
If you know the year.
taking all that and taking that like that just such an iconic piece of like film history and adapting a sequel to that like 23 years later,
Yeah.
that's pretty nuts. So
Into literally a brand new era of filmmaking.
if you haven't guessed it by now, of course we're talking about Psycho 2.
Yes.
Psycho 2. Anthony Perkins returns as
Norman Bates. And
Norman
he's
Bates.
fucking great in this.
He really good in this. And then I mean the person who played the sister,
She's back in this.
she's back in this. So there's some returning characters. So it is a continuation. It's like
It is, yeah. It is literally that. It's not a reboot. It's like
a soft reboot before they actually started becoming crazy.
Well, it's an
and
actual-
taking over horror as a whole now.
it's
But
an
that's a
actual,
whole different
yeah.
discussion.
it's an actual sequel, which I appreciate. It's not. I mean,
Well, no, it's not a direct sequel. Like they even like mention in the movie that it's been like 20
yeah.
plus years.
So it is like
So it's like present
Yeah.
day.
Of 1983.
Of 1983, obviously. But like, I don't know. Again, this could be a whole other episode, but like, it's kind of weird because I'm so sick of like the new
Of reboots
the
and,
new
like-
horror movie reboot where they like do a sequel to the one that was originally there. I didn't realize that this had happened with the Psycho movies because I'd never seen this, and it's kind of crazy to see that like this is how you should be doing it.
this is this is a fantastic sequel. Like
It holds up. It's really good.
if you want to see a movie that like not only does it respect its foundation and it respects its characters and all those things, but it also takes it into like a brand new direction. It's not just member berries.
Yeah.
It's a brand new film. Hell, like honestly, like you could honestly watch this without really watching the first film, which is weird to think about. But you could.
It does in some ways, so I guess we'll get into it. It does in some ways like show you kind of like it gives you like a brief recap of like
All the things are mentioned. through the
yeah,
movie.
so like that like our main character Norman Bates has a lot of mental health issues
and
obviously.
and he's committed murders.
He's committed murders of
was
like
dubbed insane.
7 people. Like you get an idea of what happens. I mean, hell, the movie starts
with the shower scene.
with the shower scene from the original Psycho, and then slowly converts into color. It's really cool how they do it
Yeah.
because they like, it's like it's showing the Bates Motel. It's all black and white. That you see the shower scene, the famous shower
everyone
scene
knows, yeah.
that everyone knows, even people who haven't seen Psycho. And then it pans up to the Bates house and then fades into color.
And it's like, now we're in 1983.
And like, so shortly after that, you see, I guess we're just getting into it, but you see Norman.
He's released.
He's released because he's getting off on, like, basically, they don't think he's like mentally
that he's better
unstable anymore.
And the sister of the woman who died in that shower scene, the one who in the first movie,
she's like really pissed off.
She's like, I can't believe you're doing this. He's still insane.
Well, because she thinks he should like basically get the death sentence and be institutionalized for the rest of his life. And so, but they're like, no, let's just release him.
But they release him, and they're gonna take him back home.
So he goes with his psychologist. They go back to the Bates Hotel,
which is now like it's under someone else is running the motel, but he's gonna go in his house, and they set him up with a job. So it's like he's back, and he's gonna try and live a normal life. That's your setup.
Which, listen, if you watched any horror movie ever or know anything about Psycho, you know shit does not go as planned.
I will say
she gets pretty fucked up, actually.
I will say, considering that if you've seen the first movie, you know what happened. They do a fucking really good job of making you
this movie's
sympathetic.
Well, I like how like I like how everything's planned out, right? Yeah. It's very methodical because it's because like
it's very well written.
They don't like just like burst into it like, oh, Norman Bates is killing people again or anything like that. Like, no. There's a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of like mystery behind
tension.
Like you actually, like you said, like you actually get a feel for maybe Norman has reformed. Maybe he is.
They genuinely make a part of you sympathize.
Well, and
it's weird.
It's weird to sympathize with Norman Bates because he's horrible.
But that's
he's like, well, I mean, but
that's the key though of good.
But I like it because
filmmaking.
They show like, yes, he is horrible, but also it's because he has so many like issues going on internally that he can't control.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, he's a monster, but by pure just like design.
Well, plus it's like, because I mean, they in this they reveal a little more of like how he poisoned his mother and all this stuff.
Well,
but like
it's kind of interesting because I think even in the first Psycho, they kind of try to humanize Norman. Like he's not just like a monster.
Yeah.
He's like he is a human being that does horrific shit. So it's like
crazy.
It is crazy. It is weird, like sympathizing with him. I will be honest, but
it's also because
at certain points in the movie, you're just like, okay, yeah, like I can.
Well, it's also because you don't. It's never clear cut. Like you are like watching this, and you're like, God damn, like people are really fucking with him.
But that's like the first half of the movie because like they get him into this job. He has a problem with someone else owning his hotel.
The guy basically turned it into like a
the motel, like a sleazy drug house, like a pay by the hour, like where they can just come and go as they please. But he like starts his job as like a secondary cook, at this like small diner.
He makes an acquaintance with like this girl there who's always getting like she's having issues with the boyfriend, and she's kind of having issues with the job, and like you can tell like immediately when he comes into the diner that like there's immediate tension kind of among some of the people. They're like, oh,
well, everyone's like very apprehensive because like obviously it's small town California. Everyone in this town knows what he did.
They know what's up.
So like the woman he meets in the diner who like is his coworker is having problems with her boyfriend, and they like just broke up, and she gets kicked out of her living situation. So Norman trying to like I guess reconcile things because you can tell at this point he's actually really trying. he offers a hotel room or one of his motel rooms, and
in your head, if you've seen the first movie already, you're like, oh no.
Well, yeah, because I mean, again, like it's Psycho, so obviously they want you to think.
Well, there's
that
the
way.
whole like, I mean, how his mother in the first one, even I mean, they played through it in this one, how she. There's that whole thing about like how she, she would hate him to have other girls around, and there's that whole like that's kind of what makes him snap. So you're immediately like, oh boy.
So like they go back to the motel. It's Bates Motel, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I always get it like mixed up.
It is motel, yes.
Yes. Because yeah. So I don't know why I always like fuck that one up. For some reason, I call it like hotel.
I just know motel because of the TV show.
It's just like interchangeable.
Yeah.
For me, for some reason. So they go back to the motel, and like this sleazy guy, like Norman is like checking the room to see if there's like fresh sheets on the bed, and the sleazy guy comes in and is like, "Whoa, like why are you here?" And,
yeah.
And she's like, Norman sent me over with the room. He's like, Norman, what do you mean? Like, this is like, I run this hotel.
He's immediately getting
I run this motel. See, I did it again. I run this motel.
Yeah. And and Norman finds like there's drugs in the room and all this stuff, and he tells her to go up to the house instead and basically fires the guy.
Yeah, he fires him and then threatens him and says, like, if he comes back, he'll tell the sheriff what's going on in this hotel.
And the guy just like sounds like, I know what you are. You're a fucking murderer, like all this stuff.
Yeah, the guy's like pissed
and
because he just lost his job, obviously. But
she goes up to his house. They kind of walk around and like I love. There's so many like little bits of like almost dark humor where it's like because like he poisoned the tea, right? Of his mom, and when he opens the cupboard, they show you the like little can of the poison tea, and he kind of like looks at it. It's like, oh no, and he grabs the regular tea, or like he opens the drawer and there's the fucking knife, the knife that he basically murdered everyone with. Well, and it's like all these like, little bits of like
everything's taunting him, right? Because like his history, so it's like everything is like alluding to his past.
Because he makes her a sandwich, and he's like, "Oh," she's like, "Don't you have some like cut it in half?" He's like, "Oh, I don't. There's no knives."
The thing that was weird for me is watching how awkward, like intentionally awkward it was, like watching this character adapt to normal life again, like especially in the 80s, because he's so awkward. Like Norman is great. So fucking awkward the entire movie.
It's great. It's fucking great. Like.
Well, and it also gives you a sense, like, yes, he's awkward because he's trying to adapt, but it also gives you a sense of, like, maybe he could snap at any moment because it, like, and it just builds that tension.
Because, like, right now, it's like he's awkward, but it's like he is trying to be normal, but obviously there's those little things taunting him, or how, like, he won't go into the mother's room, and then he does go in there, and you see it's all, like, it's all covered up and all this stuff, and he just won't go in there because that's where the worst things happened in that room.
Well, and like he basically just stays on the ground floor of the house for like the first half, the first half of the movie.
Like he takes her to bed. He gives her this room. I don't know if it's later or right now, but there's like a scene where she goes in the shower, and immediately in your brain you're like, oh
yeah.
Oh boy. Because she goes in the shower and it's like literally filmed exactly like the shower scene in the first one. Literally exactly the same. Right down to where like the camera pans around as she's in the shower, and you looks at the wall and you see there's like a little spot where there's like a light just briefly flashes out of it.
Yep.
And you see an eyeball just staring.
But then it tries to confuse you because it shows Norman downstairs after she gets out. She comes downstairs, because she like hears something, and
he's playing piano.
Yeah, he's playing piano, so she goes back upstairs.
She's like, "Oh, it's
and
nothing."
Goes to bed.
Yeah.
So like they say goodnight, back to the thing. So the next scene is basically he's working, and this
scene is great.
Disgruntled
So fucking good.
the motel guy he just fired
Shows
comes
up,
in like all drunk into the
he starts hassling
he starts
lady,
harassing
the girl,
her
and basically saying like, oh, did you like, basically insinuating that she slept with him, like you slept with a psychopath and all this stuff.
Yeah, it was like, oh, how was it? Oh, what's it like to sleep with a freak and stuff like that.
All this shit. And like, it's so great because like they keep filming it in like this fucking like Dutch angle whenever it's showing him. And
of course Norman at the time is chopping lettuce with like a very sharp knife,
shiny knife, and it just keeps showing
he just
him
keeps looking and like
it.
I honestly thought he was gonna like cut himself and like see blood or something like that, but
and then the big thing is you see like because they have like that little like circular like thing that has the orders for the kitchen. It just flips around and you see like an order come through and it just says like,
well, it says like something like don't let that whore sleep in the house again.
Like love mom or something. And it just keeps getting closer and closer and closer as he's getting like more annoyed by this guy. And then finally
he reaches the letter and like it is like shocked by it and like knocks the chef into the fry.
Yeah.
Like, well, so he knocks like the baskets into the fry and like a bunch of it gets on the chef's arm
and burns him.
And so like he goes out and he's like, leave her alone.
He's like, leave us alone. Like, I can't believe you did this. And like the guy's like taunting him, like, come on, look, what are you gonna do? And then you see like a cake.
He's like, oh yeah, you want to do that? Go ahead and pick it up.
And there's a knife there. Just
he's like, go ahead and pick it up. Like full on taunting Norman Bates into stabbing him. And like, you know, Norman like goes back into the kitchen and the woman goes in to console him as the guy like is like, well, you just lost a customer, like, you know,
like I'll never come back here, and leaves. And you know, the girl like thanks him, like, thank you for standing up to me, like all this kind of stuff. And they have this like,
oh, I guess we should mention, sorry, we forgot to mention, I guess it's a little important, when he was like seeing the guy at the motel before he fired him, the guy had mentioned that someone was like, teenagers were going in and like sleeping
messing
together,
around in the house, the basement,
smoking dope and like sleeping in the basement, but they had kicked him out like every time they saw them.
Yeah.
So I guess just a little foreshadowing there.
Yeah.
So, because that scene's coming up.
Yeah. There's and then this is when like because initially she tells him like, before this she's like, oh, I found a friend in town that I can like stay over with. And he's like, oh, well, you know, like, I wish you'd stay like at the house. Because one of the reasons that he tells her to stay in the house is like, he's like, well, I want company because I don't trust myself.
Right.
Like, there's so many bad memories associated with me being here. I need like another person here. Mm-hmm. Which is, again, it's like another thing where it's like, because initially you're like, oh, is there like something creepy going on? Is he like trying to like do something?
Yeah, that's what like, I mean. Part of you does think that.
Yeah,
obviously.
But then it's like, oh no, there's not really anything like that. So it's like, it's just that little thing where it's like, it almost makes you more sympathetic to him.
Well, right, because it's like kind of trying to portray this like innocent side.
But he's genuinely like,
trying to like adapt to society and like wants to do better
and wants her there to
kind of anchor him.
Yeah.
To like the real world.
Exactly.
So
but you know, eventually like she tells him, well, you know, my friend, like, she has a boyfriend who lives there, and like, you know, they have sex and they're loud. It's a 1-bedroom.
She comes back to the house with like her luggage and is like, would rather stay here.
Yeah. And then she stays there, and then the guy shows up like drunk and angry.
Oh, and he's yelling, right?
He's yelling, and you know, you see him. And then the guy like goes back in his like office and he's getting something, and you see like,
he's like, I'm packing up, I'm leaving, don't worry.
You see like a silhouette of someone quickly like run past the camera. And then as the guy's like packing up, someone comes in and with that same knife
like slashes him
like down the cheek and kills him. But
well, he slashes his cheek and then like, you know, proceeds to stab him a bunch of times, like pure Psycho style.
Yeah.
Just a million stabs.
And at this point, like, it's like the next day, he's painting the motel
all yellow, and the psychiatrist comes and is like, why aren't you at work? And he's like, I quit my job so I could work on the motel. Yeah, because I fired the guy, so I'm gonna work on this because it's better for me.
And then the psychiatrist meets the girl, and then after this, the psychiatrist goes to the police and is like, can you look into this woman, the girl? I want to know,
Yeah, and he's also like, hey, just as a safety precaution.
Oh, because at this point,
also watch Norman.
He knows that Norman's getting notes, threatening notes,
right?
And he's also getting phone calls.
Right. So he's like, he has the sheriff watch Norman and pretty much everyone that Norman's interacting with.
And he's like, can you tap his phone? The sheriff says no. I mean, he's not a criminal. We can't do anything yet.
Well, it also shows that I guess they're trying to show that this sheriff is also pretty sympathetic to Norman.
He's giving him
a
chance.
He's giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
So, just because he's like, oh yeah, I'll watch him and see if anything happens, and then I'll watch this woman. So.
And then Norman's painting the house, still painting, and then
he starts seeing someone in the window.
You see the window just kind of the curtains just kind of wave a little. He's still painting. He looks back and you see the curtain like someone opens it, and you see someone looking exactly like his mother.
So he drops the paintbrush, goes in, goes up to the room, and it's
fully decorated.
Fully decorated. Everything is uncovered.
Everything's uncovered, and there's a note saying that if that slut stays here one more night, I'll kill her. All this stuff.
Yeah, don't make me kill her or something like that.
And he runs up to the attic, looks around, sees nothing, and then the door locks. And then we get this shot where he goes to this window.
Oh, the cinematography in this movie,
great.
I should mention right now, because even this scene is really cool to watch.
Well, it's just you see him in the window, and then the camera pans across the roof, and then looks straight down, and you see these two teenagers crawling in the basement. And then the camera goes all the way down the house, right to them.
Yep.
And they crawl in the basement. The guy lays out a
dirty dirty bedroll,
and gets a fucking joint, starts smoking.
Well, they start making out, and they hear something, and she's like, "Did you hear that?" He's like, "Oh,
you're just stoned. Don't worry about it."
And they start making out again, and then
you hear more.
And then he gets up to go inspect it, and she's trying to look around.
Yeah.
And you see boots. And then the girl gets out the window, and she's like, "Come on, we need to go." And you see the whoever start attacking this guy.
And
he tries to get up on the window, and the window slams down on his fingers, and so he gets knocked back.
Yeah.
And then he just stab to death,
and then you see his fingers run down the glass, running the dust down, and then it's Norman gets woken up.
Right. It was the girl that they were making she runs away.
Yeah.
She runs away. It shows her actually escaping, which will come in important later. So Norman is sleeping and wakes up,
and the girl is there, and he opens the door, and now the attic door opens, and she's like, "What are you doing up here?" It's it was locked. I couldn't get out, and she looks, and she's like,
"There's no keyhole.
There's no keyhole.
How are you locked?"
And then he's like, "No, someone was here. Mother's room was
So he runs to his mother's room, and it's
all covered up,
all rolled up again.
Nothing's there. There's no note, nothing. Then there's a knock on the door, and the cops are there.
And they're just asking questions of what happened. We got a girl in the car that says,
someone killed
her boyfriend in the fruit cellar, and everyone knows that's where he kept his mom.
Yeah.
In the movie, that's where her corpse was.
Which they do mention, because they go down there. Everything's very clean, much cleaner than it was before.
Well, and Norman, kind of visibly like
upset
about going into the fruit cellar
because he's like, I haven't been here like at all since I've been back.
Well, and they open the door and it's like completely clean. Like everything's just immaculately set. And Norman's kind of confused because he hasn't been down there since everything happened, like 22 years.
Exactly. And he goes out with like the deputy, and the girl stays there, and just talking with like the sheriff, and he's like, that's what he tells her, like, the significance of this room. This is where he kept his mom's corpse.
Yeah.
But they don't find any evidence.
Well, and she claims that she cleaned it up.
Yeah.
Like a few days ago.
And he's like, and Norman's like, well, wait a minute.
So they go back upstairs and they're like, well, where were you? And like Norman tries to tell them was going to start telling them that he was locked in the attic, but she says they were wandering the fields.
They're walking around the fields.
Yeah.
She's covering up for him. And then you get a scene of like the mom, the sister from the original movie. She's like hassling the sheriff, like, what are you doing? Like there's a dead person and all this stuff, like you have to arrest him. And he's like, no, she's basically like, it's obvious Norman killed this kid, so why aren't you doing anything about it? Like, you have to arrest him, like it's over. Like, and he's like, no, I can't, there's no evidence,
there's no proof,
there's nothing, and he has an alibi.
Yeah,
like, it's perfect, we can't do anything. So it's like that night, and Norman's losing it because it's like all phone calls and all this shit. And there's a great line where he looks at the girl and he's like, oh God, it's happening. It's starting again, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, okay, I'm going to get like some booze and calm you down. So she goes down to the office of the motel and goes in there and is looking around, and they're like building up the tension with the music. Like, what the fuck's gonna happen? She turns on the light, and the sister from the original movie is there. And you find out that they are mother and daughter.
Yep, and
they're in cahoots.
She's like, well, did he fall for the window trick, basically? And
no, she's basically they basically say like that they closed him in the attic.
Yes, they locked him in the attic.
That they've been leaving the notes at the diner, in the house. They made the mother's room up to be like perfect, and then they took everything away while he was up there.
They're trying to like get him to snap.
The mother in particular is trying to get him to lose his shit again.
Yeah, so he goes back and is never released ever again.
But the girl is having like doubts, and she's saying like, no, I don't think he's capable.
Well, she wants to protect Norman now because getting to know him, she's more sympathetic.
She's sympathetic because she thinks that, number one, like she does believe that he is cured, or whatever you want to say, and that, like the mom is going too far.
Yeah.
Which is it's a crazy, like, it's such a...
Well, it's weird because it's
such a unique idea for a sequel.
On one hand, you can kind of get it because Norman Bates did kill her fucking sister.
Yeah.
Like, he brutally murdered her sister.
Yes.
Like, in cold blood. Like, the sister did nothing wrong.
Yes.
Except for trying to escape a really shitty situation.
Yes.
So.
And it's like, I don't know, it's such an interesting idea for a sequel. But, hey, I dig it. But yeah, it's like you find out at this point that she is doing all this. But it's also like there's that feeling in your head of like, well, who...
Well, but you also know that, like, basically these two women are not killing anyone. They're just trying to get Norman
That's the thing, is, like, you think.
Well, like...
Maybe...
You kind of think, like, maybe, like...
Maybe he is crazy.
Well, and it also makes you think, like, well...
Who's killing people?
Would they lead to, like, killing people to prove that Norman was insane still? Like, how far are they willing to go?
Yeah.
But how much do they want Norman to snap? Like, it's like... It's kind of like... cat and mouse, where it's just like you have no idea who's doing
what's actually happening,
but they're trying to drive him insane. That's like the facts. And that Norman is losing his grip on reality again.
And you also know that there's that because that is a great fucking scene where the girl goes into like the mother's room looking around because she sees like Oh yeah, no, she's Norman goes to the bathroom and flushes the toilet, and it starts bubbling like blood.
Oh, this is like, yeah. So she goes back, and they're, because like after the confrontation, the girl goes back to the house, and Norman goes to the bathroom
and flushes the toilet and starts bubbling blood. There's blood coming out of the shower, all this stuff, and he's like, and she comes up there and she's like cleaning up, and he's like, I knew it. I
murdered this kid.
I killed the kid, and I flushed the towel down the toilet. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, because she knows that they locked him in the attic.
Yeah. So she's
not going to tell him that.
Right.
But it's like, she knows that. And she's like, no, you didn't do that. Like, stop it.
Well, she was even like, you were locked in the attic. There's no way you could have done.
But he's like, well, then maybe it's mother. Like, it's all this stuff. And she's like, no, mother's dead. Like, it's great. And then as she's cleaning it up, like, he leaves. You see him go downstairs. And she's cleaning, and you get like a little glint of light in like that peephole in the bathroom. And she like runs out and is like, Norman, like, where are you? He's like, oh, I'm downstairs.
Well, and so she goes into the mother's room and like starts looking around, and she like takes off the picture frame
for the peephole.
And she like looks in through it, and you see another eye come
just
through
quickly
it.
come into view, and she screams. Oh, she also has a gun at this point. And once Norman was up there, sees it, she tells him about the eye, and he sees that she has a gun, and he's like, "Oh, that's."
He's like, "Where'd you get a gun?"
He's like, "I bet that's."
Is that
because of me?
He's like,
you're scared of me.
He's like, "Be honest, is that to use against me?"
Yeah, like, you're scared of me.
She tries to convince him it's not, but you clearly know it is. So.
They end up like hiding in this like room, and she goes to bed, and she wakes up to him like standing over her with like a knife, and you don't know like what the fuck is he gonna do. She wakes up, she ends up like comforting him as he like kind of talks about like how.
Like, well, he said like the only good memories he has with his like mother
cheese sandwich.
Yeah, toasted cheese sandwiches.
That's it. And she's like, oh, you have to remember, like, think of the good memories. He's like, no.
He's like, that's the only good one.
Like, they're all gone. I only have bad memories. And, like, she comforts him. And, again, it's like one of those things where, like, it does make you feel bad.
Yeah.
Because, again, you're just like, I have no idea. It's not him, maybe. Maybe it's him in the peephole. I don't know.
Who knows? I
don't fucking know. Maybe it's the mom.
You don't know.
Because the girl thinks it's the mom.
Well, so my thing is, I knew it wasn't the mom, because why the fuck would a mom peep on her daughter?
This is true.
In the bathroom.
But there is in this scene a moment where she calls the mom at the hotel, at the hotel the mom's staying at.
Right.
And she's like, can I speak to so-and-so? And they're like, oh, she's not in.
Well, and,
And she immediately is like, God damn it, she's running around the house.
But the thing that kind of made me think was like, okay, so like the mom wouldn't peep on her daughter, obviously, while taking a shower. But that doesn't mean that she's not peeping on, everything else going on in that bathroom.
Yeah, it's like, you have no idea.
It might have been Norman while she was taking a shower, but then it could have been the mom every time else.
Every other time, yeah.
So.
But at this point we have no idea. And then it's the next day, and there's because when the mom confronted the sheriff, one of the things she told him was check the swamp, because if you've seen the first cycle, you know that he dumped the body.
Well, it alludes. Psycho. There was only one death. I haven't watched it in so long. I can't remember. They say 7 in this movie, but I don't think it was 7
screen.
I don't think it was 7
2.
I don't think it was 7 that died in the movie.
No,
it alludes to like the mother has been kind of controlling Norman to do these murders for like 7 people.
Yeah. In the first movie, it was 2 people on screen, but the main one, the infamous shower murder, he puts her in her car and then basically sinks her in the swamp.
Yeah, which is basically what happens here, because they go to the swamp, they start digging in, they find a car. Now we don't know
and luggage.
So we don't know what's in the car yet, but they bring Norman down to figure out what the luggage is. He has an alibi for that too.
Yeah. But they were like, the luggage belongs to the guy who previously ran the hotel.
Yeah.
And they're still digging, and they find the car, and they're gonna dredge that up.
Well, the sheriff also confronts the girl in the scene and just says like I know your mom is like
I know who she.
I know who she really is.
Are.
I can't remember the.
Yeah.
For some reason, I can't remember the last name, but it is
Loomis.
Loomis. She's like, I know you're Loomis's like daughter. Like, there's no hiding it anymore. I looked into it.
This is also when his psychiatrist finds this out as well. And he tells Norman. He basically spills the beans to him.
Yeah.
Tells him like, yeah, she is related to like so and so. They are messing with you.
They're pretending to be your mother, and they're trying to mess with you to get you to snap again.
Yeah.
And Norman's like, no, like my mother is communicating with me.
He also starts talking about his real mom, and this is when you're like, what?
When the psychiatrist is like, no, we're gonna exhume your mother's body. I'm gonna prove to you
that she's dead.
That she's actually dead, which they actually do.
They exhume the body. She's dead. You think maybe he's back to reality.
Well, yeah, but he does keep mentioning his real mom.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck?
Because that's like one of the times that he got a phone call, apparently, like, it was mentioned to him. And another great thing about it is every time he gets a phone call, it's like you don't hear any other voice on the line.
Well, even like sometimes when the woman intercepts the phone calls, she doesn't hear anything. She doesn't hear anything.
She's like, "There's nobody on the
line." And she at times pretends to be the mom to get him to hang up the phone. Yeah.
And he confronts her like about all this stuff, about how she's like the daughter of this and that, and like starts talking more and more about his real mom. There's where the fuck did they go? Okay, so I think it's when they went to the swamp that the mom.
Yeah, so the original Loomis woman.
So real quick, because the daughter goes to the hotel at one point and she argues with the mom, like, you have to stop doing this.
Yeah.
And basically tells her, like, if you don't stop doing this, like, you'll be sorry, blah, blah, blah. They have a big fight. And they keep showing this hotel clerk, like, listening in, like, what the fuck is going on? So that's done. And then the mom ends up going to the house, the Bates house, when there's nobody home.
Well, because they're at the swamp at the moment. And she goes through the cellar, and she, like... And
the psychiatrist follows her.
Right. So she goes to the basement, and the psychiatrist is following close behind, but isn't, like, right behind her. And she opens the cellar door, and then you see, like, she, like, uncovers a rock where there's a knife, a wig, and a dress.
To look exactly like Mother. And she's looking through it, and then you just see somebody dressed up exactly like that.
Yep.
Come up behind her.
She looks up, and, like... This is, 80s prosthetics are fucking awesome.
This was so unexpected the first time I saw this.
Well, because up to this point, the deaths have been fairly tame, right? It's just someone, like, repeatedly stabbing someone.
It's been more bloody than the first one, but so far, nothing crazy.
Well, nothing like, decapitation or anything like, super, like, extreme, except for this one scene.
And then you get to this scene, and... This is one of those things.
So you see the knife raise up, and then it just, like, swings down.
She's screaming.
You see it, like, go through her throat and, like, split her chin open. Like,
yeah, and you see it come out the back of her head.
Yeah.
All, like, with classic prosthetics.
Yeah, like, splits her chin, goes all the way back to the back of her head, and she's just, like, choking on her own blood.
So great.
And, like... Seeing that in a Psycho movie is
so excessive. Insane. I love it.
Like, they didn't have to go that hard, but they did.
But that's why it's so fucking great to make, like, an 80s sequel to something like that, because you just know they couldn't resist.
No, they had to just have one banger fucking murder scene.
That's fine, because we do get another one. There's because after this happens, like, the psychiatrist shows up there. He's looking around. He can't find anything. Norman shows up too. And they're looking around, like, the basement, and he tells them, like, yeah, I followed her here. Like, she she's been pretending to be your mother, all this stuff, and he again keeps talking about like, no, she can't be, because I know my real mother. And after they leave the basement, you see like it pans up to like there's like all these like bits of coal in like a corner,
and you see the mother's face,
and it's her face like just buried under all the coal. But the guy is like telling him like, if I prove to you like that, you know, that Miss Loomis and her daughter are the ones doing all this, like, will you drop it? Will you drop this stuff about like your real mother and all this? And he's like, yeah.
He's like, sure. Yeah, of course. And so the psychiatrist goes back to the parlor, in the hotel, and all this while like the daughter's trying to like get in touch with the mother again, and then like what freaks her out? I can't remember.
She shows up, and she's at the house, and Norman's still like on edge, and then they get the phone call, and it's the psychiatrist,
and he says like, listen, this is where she's been calling from. I can prove to you that this is like the phone.
But then Norman starts, and this is where it gets very mindfucky, because Norman immediately starts being like, okay, mother, like, thank you, and just like,
well, and like, so the woman gets frustrated, so she goes downstairs and uncovers the rock and like dresses up as his mom,
and like show him,
goes up, and it's all like, it's like, just get off the phone, like,
I'm your mother, you have to get off the phone. And he's like talking, he's still talking on the phone, and there's a great fucking part where he's like, he's not talking to anybody, like there's nobody on the line, but he's like pretending to talk to his real mother. He's like, no, Mary is the girl, and he's like, no, her name's Mary, she's nice. And he's like, no, I won't, I can't do that,
I can't kill her,
and like,
well, and then you see the psychiatrist, like, he's hung up and like gone off back to the,
he's already gone off,
go back to the house, and so he like starts coming at her
because she goes up to the upstairs phone, like yelling at him, like, get off the phone, all this stuff. And you see him walk up behind, he's like, I knew it. But she has the knife.
Well, and she you know, pushes the wig off and like opens the dress and is like, it's me, like, what's going on? And then like he like comes at her, and she's like hiding somewhere, and you see the door like behind her open. And like someone like startles her, and you can see it's the psychiatrist, and she stabs him, and then he like stumbles back,
he falls over the railing,
through this little like gap in the stairs, and then like lands.
He lands on the knife in his chest, and
the knife like lands on the banister of like the separate stairs, and like stabs the knife in further into his chest cavity.
It's fucking great.
And he just like collapses dead on the floor.
And Norman sees it, and he's like, you did it again, mother.
He's like, you did it. I can't believe you're doing this. And he's like,
it's fine, I'll protect you.
She like starts running towards the cellar and like, you know, stabbing him.
Well, she starts like, he's like coming at her, and she's like stabbing at him because she's like freaking out.
She like stabs his hands, his chest a couple times.
And again, you see like knife going into like prosthetic hands and stuff. But he's like, no, I'll protect you. Like, I'll always protect you and all this stuff. And she's like, still like, no, like, stop.
So she's almost backed into the cellar. The fruit cellar, and she looks around, and like he stumbles on the coals,
and they fall over.
They crumble over, and you see her dead mother.
And she's like, you did this, you killed her.
Then she freaks out and like tries to go after Norman as the sheriff. This ending is just insane, because like the police get there right as she's going after him,
dressed as his mother,
and they shoot her
because she's about to stab him, and they shoot her, and that's that. And you're just sitting there like,
wow,
holy shit! But it's still not over.
You still have unanswered questions, so
there's still like 10 minutes of movie. So, fascinating.
They go back to the police station, and Norman's just sitting there with his hands bandaged up,
and he's just like not talking. And you see like the guy at the hotel, he's giving a statement saying like,
he's like, they were saying they were going to do some stuff, and like they were arguing the whole time. So, like, you know, you have,
sheriff's like
motive and stuff like that, so.
The sheriff's saying, like, her and the mom killed everybody. They were just trying to make Norman go insane. Just trying to push him over the edge. All this kind of stuff. And so he's released. But you're still, like, They're still like...
Well, because he kept even mentioning to the psychiatrist about his real mother. Like,
yeah, and that question's still there. But you just see, like, he goes back. You know, he's all bandaged up. He puts some coal in the fire. And he's in the kitchen, and you see that, like, there's, like, 2 sets of plates and silverware. And then you get a shot of some old woman coming up the steps to the house. And, you know, she knocks on the door and comes in, and it's, I swear I could be fucking going insane, but I swear to God it's the woman from the diner.
Oh, might have been, yeah. No, I think about it, yeah. I swear
it looks exactly like the woman from the diner. But she comes in, you know, they introduce and all this stuff, and there's even more, like, kind of funny moments, because he's like, oh, I don't have much, but you want a toasted cheese sandwich? And then, of course, you know, he's getting some tea, and of course he grabs the...
Well, she's like, no, thank you. And he's like, do you want some tea? And she's like, oh, yes, please.
And then another thing I love is, very conveniently, the shovel that he used to shovel up the coal is just sitting.
Well, because she's like, oh, you were expecting me. And he's like, well, I was expecting someone.
Yeah, I didn't know who. But she shows up, and you're just like, what the fuck is going to happen? Because she starts talking, reveals that, yeah, she is actually his mother.
Well, and she, like, had, like, mental issues of her own.
The mother, who we thought was his mother, was her sister. She had Norman out of wedlock, and she is the one who had mental issues of her own. She was institutionalized, so he grew up with the other woman and all this stuff, and she tells him that, like, she was watching him the whole time, and that it was her
that killed
everyone.
Well, and she's like, well, I couldn't let them just, like, hurt you. Like, I had to protect you in any way I could. And so, like, you know that, like, she's killed everyone. And as she's like, she starts to sip the tea.
And he just kind of stands there with, like, this shit-eating look on his face.
Well, he, like, stands, like, right behind her, so you're just like, oh, my God.
But then he picks up the shovel.
Well, because she starts, like, collapsing, and just, I guess, to get the job done... He just picks up the shovel and just slams it so hard into her head.
You see grannies get owned in this movie. Like, he smashes her head with that shovel so hard that it breaks the chair, and she, like, falls over, like, dead and shaking.
I was not expecting that.
And you're just like, what the fuck?
It is such a loud, like, hard hit. Well, it's insane.
Yeah, because there's no, like, edit. It's just he stands there, he picks up the shovel and just fucking wallops her in one shot, and and then he, like, carries her body up the stairs, and you have that great fucking, like, shot from, like, the top.
It's like one of those, like, dollhouse, like, shots
it's
where it's like they make the house look like a dollhouse almost.
Yeah, they put the camera, like, way up high. And you just see him carry her body into the mother's room, and he's like, I'll put you to bed.
He's like, you must be tired, mother. I think I'll put you to bed. And she's
I'll even say your prayers. And then, like, as soon as he crosses into the room...
Well, and it doesn't, like, cut.
No,
right?
It just stays there.
Because it's like, and then you hear the mother's voice, like, I'm not tired. Put me by the window.
I want to watch you and, like, all this stuff. And, like... Go run the hotel.
Well, she's like, what are you doing? Like, how do you think we're going to earn money? How do you think we're going to keep up this place?
And you better not bring any, like, women around and all this stuff. And then you see the fucking Bates Motel sign turn on with the vacancy.
Well, and then you get this fucking just...
Lit.
Like, just such a fucking metal, like, fucking... scene.
No, the
fucking, like,
the last shot of this
is the most like... metal fucking thing I've ever seen.
It literally looks like a fucking metal cover.
It does, because you get the fucking Bates house
with the window
with one fucking light
and a figure in the window
and then Norman Bates just standing over the fucking staircase
with, like, the thunder and the clouds in the
like
back.
Clouds coming in, like, it's just.
It's so fucking cool.
Fucking awesome.
And then just cut to credits. That ending is so satisfying.
I really liked it. I did not expect to like this as much as I did, because I had never...
No one talks about this movie.
To be honest, I had not... No one talks about it so much that, like...
You forget it exists.
I didn't really know it existed.
Exactly.
Like, I had no idea. I knew there was maybe some Psycho sequels, but I didn't know like how many, what they were about. Like I had no idea.
I think it's just that thing where like because the first movie's so iconic that it like overshadows it, and the fact that this came out during like the slasher kind of boom. I think people just kind of forget that like this is part of that boom of 80s slashers.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of crazy that it's like a soft reboot before those were even like a big thing.
Yeah.
Because those didn't happen like super often.
No.
I mean, they happened a little bit. Like you'd get like in the 80s, you get a lot of like remakes of stuff that was in like the 60s.
Yeah, like The Thing.
Yeah, like so, but you'd get like they'd be like remakes enough where it was like they were almost completely different movies.
No, they were because they were taking movies that were like kind of like 50s, kind of cheesy movies, but they were making them like these like fucking horrifying R-rated like modern horror.
But like stuff like this didn't happen very often that I know of, at least.
But this where it's like you actually take a film from the 60s and you actually like move it forward 23 years with like the same timeline and everything with like same characters and all that, but modernized.
What I like about this one though is like I think that's like the thing I kind of dislike about a lot of these like reboots. A lot of them are just like oh, remember this, remember when this happened in this other movie. It's like it's so like trying to nostalgia bait you that it ends up being just hokey and like just you can tell it's a money grab half the time.
What I love about this is that it's very. I mean, first of all, I think the easiest thing to do would have been, I love the soundtrack to this movie. There's like a main theme that plays through this that's like very like almost tragic, and I fucking love it because the easiest thing to do would have been for them to just fucking ape the music from Psycho 1, but I love the fact that they made up a brand new soundtrack for this.
Yeah, no, I the only thing they did ape from the first one is like the first scene, but that was relevant.
But that's literally the scene. Other than that, like, I love how independent it is because it's like you could watch this without watching the first one.
You get enough context that you know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, you know what's happening. Like the biggest thing that you need to know is who the woman in the shower was that died, and they show you that right away.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, it's very. There's no nostalgia baiting. There really isn't.
No, and that's what I like about it. That they don't. It's its own thing.
Like it is very much. I don't know. There's just something I love about the fact that it's a movie. It's a sequel made years after the fact, but it's very much set in its own time.
This could have been a standalone film and been fine.
Like it is, whereas like Psycho 1 is very much a movie from 1960. This is very much a movie from 1983. Like there's no like 60s throwbacks.
Right.
You know? There's none of that. It's very much a 1983 modern.
Well, film. This is like what I want from like a reboot, right? It's like its own thing, but still knows its roots.
Well, that's another thing I love is.
But don't like always like you don't have to like pander to the original fans.
What I love is that I think any good sequel, what you have to do is number one. I think you have to move the characters forward, and this does that.
Yeah.
I think it like making Norman Bates into like an almost like sympathetic victim is unique, and it is moving the story forward. And turning the sister from the original movie into like an almost like a vengeance hungry like crazy woman is also that's pushing the story forward.
I mean, another good example of this, like kind of a more modern one that I really enjoyed was Doctor Sleep.
Yeah.
You know, The Shining and Doctor Sleep. Very different movies, completely separate, like from
decades apart,
but still connected enough that like it enhances the original as much as it enhances the sequel by having watched the original.
Yeah, because if you watch both,
it should enhance both your viewing experiences.
Yes,
like this one, like Psycho 2. It's like does it enhance it if you've watched the original Psycho? Yes, because you get more context of what's going on and where the characters are at.
Yeah.
But it also enhances this, it enhances the original because you know where it kind of leads to.
Yeah, and you know that the people who made the sequel respect the original.
Yeah, then that's why kind of what I think with like Doctor Sleep and The Shining. I don't know, like a lot of people didn't. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that didn't like Doctor Sleep, but I thought that was a good example of like kind of bringing that into modern day and doing like a soft reboot sequel to something that was decades in the past, but doing it right.
Speaking of doing it right, you know what I appreciate, Will? I'm not going to mention names here, but one of the things that people talk about a lot recently with certain movies is subverting expectations.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the assumption is all it takes to subvert expectations is to just make old characters do stupid shit or write them stupid. And what I like about this is that it does subvert your expectations, but it subverts them because the people who made the movie actually knew what they were doing.
Yeah, well, and kind of gave a shit about it.
They give a shit about the original.
It doesn't feel like they're just doing it to get money.
Yeah, they're not just like shitting all over the legacy of Psycho. Like, this is a fucking million times better than the fucking remake. Like, so much better.
Dude, the remake, I don't even know how you can make a shot-for-shot remake of something, and it's like a million times worse than your source material.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. My bad. They added clouds.
There was clouds.
Lots of clouds.
During the shower scene, you had clouds.
You had lots of clouds, okay?
That makes sense.
For whatever reason, I still really don't get the significance. I don't really care to understand.
Artsy fartsy bullshit.
I don't really care to understand the concept of the clouds because I hate that movie.
No, it's no.
But anyway, this is not a review of the remake of Psycho.
We'll get to that.
How would you rate this shitty to pretty?
I don't know. You know what? I adore this movie. I respect it so much.
Do you want to give your hot take?
Oh, my hot take was there are things about this movie I like more than the first one. Namely the fact that the first one is a fucking amazing movie.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the acting outside of like Anthony Perkins and the sister, it's very Leave It to Beaver, put it that way.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like a 50s sitcom.
And I get it. I mean, it is
maybe that was the intention, but
it was not. I get that it's 1960 and like it is what it is, but I do think this movie, as far as that goes, is a lot more cohesive. And I'm sorry, I love my slashers. I love my body counts, and I'm sorry, I love seeing grandmas get fucked up, and this movie gives me that.
Well, I mean, I love the first Psycho as well.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't think it's even near Hitchcock's best.
It's up there for me, but it does. There is that thing where Anthony Perkins is so good in that movie that you watch it and you. Like, whenever someone who's not Anthony Perkins is off screen, you almost, like, forget the fact that, like, the rest of the acting is kind of not quite up to it.
Well, I only say that it's, like, nowhere near because, like, say what you will about it, but, like, my favorite one is Vertigo.
Right.
And then North by Northwest. You got, like, you got just a huge library of, like, just bangers. Amazing movies.
Banger after banger.
Like Psycho's an incredible movie, but how do you pit it up against those? Like for me, I wouldn't say it's like even near his best, but it is like top 5.
Yeah,
Hitchcock movies, obviously.
Right.
So, but it's like Vertigo is like nothing can come close to Vertigo for me. So,
the other hot take is and this is something that wasn't. I don't think it was originally supposed to be in the movie, but in the first Psycho. Because the ending of the first Psycho is fantastic, except for one thing. There's that 5-minute fucking scene where they have the psychiatrist come in, and everyone knows this because if you've seen the movie, you know this because the movie just grinds to a halt. Is the psychiatrist comes in and step by step, like you're watching a 50s TV show, explains what's wrong with Norman Bates. And it's just like the movie just slows to a crawl, but it's like it's just one of those things that it feels like a studio was like, hey, Hitchcock, you have to put this in the movie because people be stupid.
It was kind of like hand-holding.
Whereas I appreciate that this doesn't bother.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess because it's the 80s and no one gave a fuck and people were just doing so much cocaine that they were willing to release insanity like this. But it doesn't have that. So, like, there are bits of this movie that I do like more.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Shitty Did Pretty, I'd honestly probably give this like a 9 or a 10.
I'd give it a 10.
I think 10 is a good way. I don't know, like, it's just sheer, like, just really good. Like,
it's just a fucking...
It doesn't deserve to be on this podcast.
It's a fucking damn good thriller. Like, that's...
It really is. Like, so I think a 10 is definitely a good, like, rating, just because, like...
It's almost shocking to me that, like, when you go to, like, the store to, like, or wherever, and, like, you like, look for Psycho, that they don't, like, sell this with it. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, it kind of, like, they treat it almost like it's, like, this, like...
That this doesn't exist.
Like, don't worry about the sequels to Psycho. Yeah. Like, they're horrible.
Yeah, and it's just, like... But, you know, that's... that's why this podcast exists, yep. Will. Is so you can watch Psycho 2 and know, and you can have that little smug bit of your brain that's like,
yeah,
I know what's
I've watched
good.
It.
I've seen Psycho 2.
And if you're listening to this right now and you like Psycho, I would just check it out, give it a try. Really, like, I don't think you'll be disappointed. If you are, I mean, it's not like, you know,
it's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. If you are disappointed, that's just your opinion.
But I mean,
we're giving ours opinions.
I'll be
honestly,
honest. If you've liked a lot of the movies that we've liked,
you probably will like this movie.
I don't see how you wouldn't like this. And honestly, if you do like the first Psycho,
like, it is a kind of like a slow burn, but it's like methodical enough, and like
once it gets
the tension builds enough that it pays off.
It keeps going. No, this is a good way to do a slow burn.
Yeah,
because it ratchets up. Like, the last 40, 30 minutes is literally, like...
It goes, like, fucking Insano style.
Non-stop.
Yeah.
Just, like...
It's murder after murder.
It's just insanity and, like, Norman Bates just snapping, and you're just sitting there like, what the fuck's gonna happen? Who's gonna get fucking hurt? Like...
Yeah, I like this one. It's a good one. Go check it out if you get the chance. We had to rent it on Amazon. Really good quality. Like, really high HD. You can buy it on there if you want to.
It looks fucking great.
It looks really good. That's where we rented it. I'm sure there's other places you could rent it, but that's where we rented it. So if you want to check it out, Psycho 2, really good movie. Definitely recommend it. And
watch it.
Yeah, that's about it, I think.
That's it.
So, for They Mostly Come Out at Night, this has been Will.
This has been Alex.
And we will talk to you all later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye, folks.
Bye-bye. Why didn't you stop the podcast?
We really got it together, didn't we?